I was thinking recently how weird it is that I've just kind of sort of mentally and without really meaning to associated myself and my show with Jeremy Seal's music in general. Some Morrowind songs, some Skyrim songs, some Oblivion songs. And I was actually, this came up semi recently, and I have some viewers who, of course, detract from me for that, for saying, hey, you're terrible and awful for stealing all this copyrighted music. But it came up recently because I was just thinking about throwing on some music for the background of my Loreweek, and my automatic immediate inclination was I actually have a playlist called Morrowind, which is funny because it's actually a lot of music that isn't in Morrowind, but it's the Fits Everything playlist, as I've referred to it on stream a few times. And I was actually thinking about that, and it's a shame because I have some of my own music, but my own music's terrible. One of these days, I would like to actually make my own music to associate with my show rather than basically using my remixes, which is what I do right now. I use remixes of existing music. It's sometimes identifiable because the variance is sometimes not. But it'd be nice to someday have the time to make music like I used to. It's been a long time. Anyways, let's go ahead and hammer out a couple of quick things before we get to the major news points. First of all, for those of you not aware, God, we've got a trailer analysis to do today, consequently. I really hope you guys don't want me to do an Omen trailer analysis. I mean, I'm going to talk about it, but I don't want to do a full analysis of that. And we've got two fairly large topics to talk about this week, including one that Roximus is mentioning right now. Actually, that's not one of the large topics, but anyways, as a quick thing, hi to everyone. Hello to Psychotic, Deutsch, Lurker, Bragwin, Myron, of course, Feelgood, Takoida, Andre, Mr. Darkness, Zeiss, as ever. Excuse me. All right, so let's talk about a couple of quick things. First of all, for those of you not aware, I'm not going to disagree with that, Roximus, but I don't have much to say about it. Anyways, Minecraft now has mod support. Now, how you react to that sentence is going to say a lot about your own experience with Minecraft. I'm just going to sit back and see what people say in reaction to the sentence, Minecraft now has mod support. Hi, Saldir. All right, I should actually turn on the Fits Everything playlist. There, Fits Everything. If it's too loud or too soft, just say something. Actually, no. Minecraft did not have mod support. Minecraft had mods. Lots and lots and lots of mods. But it never had mod support. It never had the developers deliberately coding and releasing content for the explicit purpose of supporting mods. This is the difference between moddable games and mod-supported games. Hi, Spirit. I really hope your dog is doing better. But obviously you're probably not even here to hear that, so yeah. Yeah. Minecraft is finally mod supported. And the funny thing is the mod support as is actually terrible. It's hilarious how little you can do with the existing mods. It's basically you can edit existing information and a few variables, but you can't add anything. You can't really change the core mechanics of the game like you could with actual mods that have already existed. So, yeah. I do find it interesting, though, and see, it's weird for me to talk about Minecraft, because in my personal mind, Minecraft's moved on. You know, I have moved on from Minecraft. I have done everything that I have desired to do with Minecraft, and have no real desire to go back to it. It is actually, in many ways, the definition of a popcorn game for me. But at the same time, it's hard for me to tell, based on my own bias, how popular Minecraft still is. Because they're still supporting it. I mean, this latest patch emphasizes this, and they are trying to actually be like, here, look. But I don't know if that's actually a good move or a bad move, because my automatic inclination is it's a good move. You know, anything to add to player ingenuity or player replayability is a good thing. But again, it's kind of a weird move. It would be like Well, I'm actually having trouble coming up with a similar example. Imagine if for a moment that Oblivion did not have mod support, okay? Just pretend that we've rewritten reality and Oblivion didn't have mod support, but all the mods that have been made in the last 10 plus years still existed. They were just all unofficial mods, okay? It would be like if all of a sudden Oblivion, Bethesda came out and said, "We are now supporting mods for Oblivion." I don't really... I mean, it's a good move. It's just really, really, really late, you know? Oh, right. Thank you, Deutsch. God, I am really bad about this. Let me just toss out thing. I even have it always up. I don't even close the tab where I can send out... where I send out the push notifications. I just leave it open. Send. So anyways, it's a weird thing to talk about, but again, I don't have that much to share. That's why this is going in the beginning. It's just interesting that they're doing something good very, 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 very late. In fact, actually, I just thought of a parallel. It's like if DC was like, we're going to do our own MCU. Anyways, what else? 6 minutes? Let's talk about one other thing really, really quick here. So, for those of you not aware, there's this game out there called Evolve. Now, Evolve is a weird game to talk about because the core gameplay was one of those excellent on paper, badly executed things, and then out of nowhere, the game went from being blah to being good. Like, they actually really went back and really reworked many aspects of the game to try and improve it. But then there was a DLC cluster of doom regarding Evolve, and a lot of some of the most nakedly greedy DLC things I've ever seen with regards to a game. And it's weird, but then the developers are like, no, we still want to keep working on it. Here's the really strange thing. So to make this clear, Evolve is made by Turtle Rock and published by 2K. All right, 2K Gaming. Turtle Rock, everything I've seen about that seems to indicate the same thing to me. Turtle Rock are decent folks. They're people who have actually tried to knuckle in and actually put in a real effort to make Evolve a good game and actually wanted to make a good game. Now, I hate to put the publishers as the bad guys because Lord knows that's like the most common thing in the known universe because the publishers are always the bad guys. But everything I've seen is kind of conjectural. Everything I've seen seems to indicate that 2K Gaming is basically the people to be blamed for everything that's going wrong and everything that has gone wrong with Evolve in the last year. And the final bit of news is that the Turtle Rock people have been informed that they are no longer working on Evolve. Now, I haven't checked this in a couple of days, so I'm not sure if there's been any additional news, but the phrasing of this actual announcement and the weirdness with which the situation happened made it very unclear what was actually happening. The gentleman who was saying it said it with a clear tone of disapproval, that Turtle Rock was, he at least, was wanting to keep working on Evolve, but that he was removed from the project, basically. I don't know if that means 2K Gaming has abandoned Evolve completely, pulled the plug, in other words. I don't know if that means that they have basically been fired from their own project, which is more of a common thing than you'd think, a developer being fired from their own game. It could also mean that Turtle Rock itself is splitting up. It could mean that Turtle Rock is trying to move on to something new. I mean, I don't know. But it is a bit of a shame, in my opinion, because as I said, I actually have a decent amount of respect for the Turtle Rock people. It is my impression that there's some real care and actual passion and interest in making good gameplay and good games from them. But that's just my impression, of course. And again, I don't want to completely blame 2K Gaming. After all, it was a Turtle Rock person who made that wonderful comment, this was over a year ago now, of, "Our game is built for DLC." Paraphrasing. So anyways, neither of those, I'm not going to timestamp neither of those. Those are just miniature things. Let's talk about Well, shoot. Let me think about this, actually. So I've got... Well, let's talk about FF15. So we'll do that first. We'll do FF15. For those of you not aware... Hey, hi, Macromono, by the way. For those of you not aware, FF15 released a trailer recently called Omen. Now, I've actually been asked my opinion of that more than once already, including on my Tumblr and in a few private messages. And so, let me get this out of the way real quick. I don't want to come across as if I'm being too negative to 15, alright? Even though at this point my opinion of the game is not actually that high, to be completely honest. Gameplay does look fun, but certain aspects of the game still make me just kind of go... But let's go ahead and talk about the Omen trailer. Because that was what was specifically asked about. Obviously, that just came out. Obviously, it does tie into Kingsglaive in several ways. It's... I've commented many times on Square Enix's CGI directorial department. The people that don't work on Kingdom Hearts, in other words. And I put it that way specifically because if you look at a Kingdom Hearts CGI trailer, or CGI intro or whatever, it is oozing symbolism. Virtually every single screen in that can be taken apart and said, you know, thought and effort was put into making things that are significant in the thing to actually demonstrate relevance in some way or another. But other than that department, which will move aside now, the rest of Square Enix seems to think that the best way to do CGI, whether it's a trailer or a teaser or an in-game cinematic or whatever, is to make it as flashy as possible. No, I'm not spoiling anything here. I don't... to make it super, super flashy. And deliberately devoid of substance. The example I always go back to is FF13's racing scene, which is a scene that is just very, very, very well-polished fluff. I'm not saying there's necessarily anything wrong with that, but I personally don't like that. That is my opinion. I don't enjoy that. And I look at that and I'm like, that's it? You know, at that point, it feels like... I don't even have an example. I don't have a parallel. It looks like looking at a very well-done piece of CGI. And at that point, I'm basically just appreciating it artistically or mechanically, you know? So the Omen trailer, getting back to that, does definitely have some actual lore and some actual significance in it, but it still feels like it's done by the same team who was like, well, yeah, we could show this significant aspect of the story in the background, but we could also do this super flashy thing. Because if you pay attention to the direction of the Omen trailer, it literally bounces back and forth between the two. It literally has a scene where it's like, here's this presentation, here's this character in the background who has an obvious visual parallel to this character, and then there's a big flashy fight scene where everything's going everywhere all the time, and then it comes into the next thing. I actually made my desk shake a bit with that one. That's how the Omen trailer felt for me. So if I could chop it down about in half, I would actually probably enjoy it a great deal. But the other problem I have with the Omen trailer is it... I'm trying to think of a word here. Let me. I'm trying to think of terminology to really explain what I mean. I don't want to, because I'm not trying to come off as negative. That's not actually where I'm going for. Obviously, I didn't like the constant jump cuts. I didn't like the constant flashiness of certain scenes. I'm sick of the slow-mo thing. You know, there's actually a term for that. I can't remember what it's called. It's like rubber band directing. In other words, like, there's a scene where someone's like, and then it speeds up. There's actually a term for that, and I can't think of it. But they did that thing, which I hate. They did the jump cut, which I hate. They did shaky cam, which I hate. And it's not just video game trailers. I hate these things in movies, too. I loved Captain America Civil War. Except for the intro, which was just one of the most horrifying things. It actually made me feel a little bit nauseous, just a little bit nauseous, watching the intro to that movie. Because it was jump cut, shaky cam, jump cut, shaky cam, jump cut, slow-mo, shaky cam. And I hate that crap. And I could dissect why I dislike that. I could actually sit down and enumerate from a directorial perspective why I disagree with that. I don't feel like doing that. We're talking about Omen here. Let's just say that I dislike it and move it on. So there were several moments in Omen where I was literally just doing this. Then it would move on from that scene, and I would be more like this. My overall tone kept bouncing back and forth between that. Now, I also don't actually know a lot about... I don't actually know a lot about the FF15 setting yet. Because I haven't seen Kingslave, basically. And I haven't seen a lot that's actually revealing more about the... the setting and whatnot. I wasn't impressed. I'll just be honest about it. You can go and hate me. It's fine. I accept it. My opinions are not usually that popular. But there was some cool stuff on display, especially the fact that this is my interpretation, all right, of what we're saying. Keeping in mind I have not seen Kingslave. So in a vacuum, my interpretation is what we're looking at is something that doesn't actually happen. We're looking at a vision by Bob, I don't know his name, who is perceiving what might happen in the future. And that's especially true because of the fact, because of the fact that two clear visions are shown. If you really pay attention to what's happening throughout the Omen trailer, and I did watch it a second time to catch up on this, there are two tonalities to the significant parts. I'm not talking about the jump cut, and I'm not talking about the lore stuff. I mean, even within the jump cut scenes and even within the other scenes, there are certain scenes where it makes it clear that Noctis, the main character, is the aggressor. That he is someone who could be perceived as a villain. And I don't just mean at the end where he's obviously black and evil. I mean several of the earlier fight scenes are framed from different angles and different ways to show that he is the person assaulting these others. And then there are other chunks where it is much more clear, and it's, again, immediately visually distinct, good directing, that he is actually the defender, I guess is the term here, the person who is the victim in the circumstance. Someone who is trying to survive, or someone who is trying to flee, or someone who is trying to, avoid oppression or depression or whatever. And the scenes cut back and forth through this, and admittedly, part of the reason I wasn't that engaged by the trailers, I don't like that style of storytelling in general. Basically, I can't think of the term, but all of a sudden, there's a style of art and directing which is abstractionist, I think, is actually what I'm thinking of, but I'm not sure if that's the abstract. In other words, something that is not literal. Something that is not supposed to be intended and taken literally. I usually don't care for that stuff in general. But showing the flow of things as it was going through, it clearly shows possibility A, possibility B, possibility B, possibility A, possibility A, possibility B, and just going back and forth between the ideals of what Noctis could be. Now, if I was to really analyze this, I would say that something Leander mentioned is very significant. We only ever see Noctis and Chickface, Celis too, I don't know what her name is, and that's really it. Those are the only two characters that receive any main focus within the Omen itself. And the total absence of anyone else affecting that. And Leander, of course, already got there. But the point being, the possibility that the inclusion of his friends will be able to shape what direction he shifts his powers to, whereas by himself, he will gravitate towards an extreme. To explain what I mean by this, if I was to predict this, and I'd love this if I was right, I think that on his own, Noctis would either be very evil, relishing in the kind of power and offensive capacity he uses, and using it to express his will upon the world around him, or very good, but very passively good. Again, the way he is being demonstrated is as a victim, not more of a defender. I was using the wrong term. More of a victim. Someone who isn't really wanting to fight back. In other words, too dark and too light. If I'm right about this, it would be interesting to see that his friends kind of helped pull him towards more of a balanced perspective in the middle, which I think would be pretty cool. Anyways, that's all I got about FF15. And hey, Mac Daddy, what's up? Yeah, I would say that, Dakota. That sounds about right. What are we at time-wise? God, I talked about that for 10 minutes. I don't have much to say about FF15. Blah, blah, blah. Uh, let's do the trailer analysis. Because I actually have already done a private trailer analysis for myself to kind of prep for this. I don't actually... I thought I had some things to share. I don't. But I do have some other things to share, so that's something, right? So I gotta mute this. There we go. So we're gonna actually go ahead. First thing we're gonna do is we're gonna get rid of that. Oop, not that. That. And this. Now again, I cannot play this with audio because the world is stupid. Now, a lot of the symbolism in this is actually really obvious, and I would feel stupid for commenting on it. But you will see throughout this entire work a clear and obvious presentation of ocean and sky. That is so obvious and so apparent that I don't really even feel the need to comment on it further. But again, ocean and sky being the two big things here. If I was to look into that a little bit, I would say that ocean and would be representative of darkness, whereas sky would be representative of light. But, you know, whatever. We'll not get into that. Now, this is interesting to me. So, as I mentioned before, Kingdom Hearts is... Oh, there it goes. Tends to have very deliberate direction. Here, I'm going to pause here just a moment to really get across my point. Very deliberate direction. In other words, the exact opposite of what I mentioned earlier. There's no, yeah, this is cool, let's do it for cool's sake. Everything is done for a deliberate reason. Now, I want your guys' theories on this, because one thing that caught my eye immediately about the intro, here, watch this, this is interesting, is the fact that we don't see their faces of the three titular characters there. Or titular, however you're supposed to say that word. Watch. Their faces are obscured and actually blurred out a bit, except right there is the only time we see any of the kids' faces, and of course it is Sora's. The only thing I could pull from that is the idea that Sora himself is the connecting point, so he's the only actual face that I've seen, and yeah, I did notice that. And of course, Aqua seeing Sora's heart thing is really obvious. I really don't feel any need to mention that. The idea of them being trapped in those things, I'm going to go ahead and toss out a theory, and I want you to keep it in mind. I'm going to re-show this really quick here. I think, representatively speaking, those charms are supposed to be their memories, okay? Just keep that in the back of your mind. Her memories of what she's gone through in Birth by Sleep, his memories of what he went through in Birth by Sleep, and his memories of what he went through Birth by Sleep. You with me so far? Memories. And so the memory, of course, of the three of them holding this. Notice her face. A clear effort is made. Here, just a moment here. A very distinct and clear effort is made to show her looking happy. The action goes from this jump cutty mess here into a pause. All of a sudden, the action just stops, and everything focuses on her and how she's happy. Then, of course, that's taken away from her. He turns away. He turns away. Again, so a lot of this is obvious. Now, this is cool. I've actually paused this screen several times to really showcase. But one thing I really want to point out, you can see it here very clearly. There's no one in the thrones. Remember that. So there's the 13 points of darkness, which, of course, leads quite naturally back into Terra Nord. Oh, by the way, huge spoilers. Terra Nord. And I can't remember his name. Oh, yeah, by the way, so never let it be said that I am unwilling to admit that I am wrong. The first trailer that came out, I spent, like 5 minutes trying to figure out what that was in the background. I have a new theory as to what that is, because it's pretty clear based on the way this entire scene is shot. We're about to see a lot of jump cuttiness, but I've been through it frame by frame. That's just, well, that is the plateaus in the background like some people theorized. However, I do think it has significance. First of all, because of the obvious way this shot is framed. You don't have one visible thing in the background clearly, predominantly, deliberately in the middle of Aqua and the two aspects of Xehanort from Birth by Sleep, and do it unintentionally. But we'll get more to what I think that means in a bit. Jump cutty fight scene, blah, blah, blah. Actually, this isn't that jump cutty. This is pretty well done. There's a few jump cuts, but it's nowhere near as bad as some of the other things. Vanitas, that was his freaking name. Also, this is kind of interesting to me. We see the two aspects of darkness right here. I'm serious. Watch the two of their expressions. They go out of their way to show Vanitas grinning, him frowning, and yeah, Vanitas has blue eyes, and Terranort has yellow. Note that Mickey comes from Sora. That's a recurring theme throughout this, Sora being the connecting point. That's nothing new, it's just something I'm pointing out. Then the two of them beat ass. Originally I thought this was something deliberate, but it's not. They actually trade off opponents. Sky, Light, again, very obvious. But, of course, this is cool. They're literally plummeting into the ocean. Now, I'm going to try really hard to showcase something here. Give me a moment. Do you see who's on the thrones? Now, going through this frame by frame is a little bit easier to showcase it. But it's all Xehanort, as in Master Xehanort, as in old Xehanort. And they're all in the exact same pose. Kind of one of the it's the bored Conan pose. Xehanort is leaning his hand on his head, and he's got his legs crossed. Every single one of them has one. Here, we'll slow it down a lot. You can really see it. And especially right there, it becomes very obvious, the Xehanort parallel between each of them. The exact same model, in the exact same pose, in the exact same figure. And there is that plateau from earlier. The significance here becomes immediately apparent. And again, very obvious symbolism. No real need to go into the detail. But the idea that, Xehanort is... The prime Xehanort there is standing on his prime throne, the highest one of all of them, with the blue Kingdom Hearts behind him, with the plateau behind him, makes it really obvious what's being demonstrated here, and how even in their victory, they have lost. That's the point of this. Even though they beat him, he still won. He still had the backup plan. Aqua then sacrifices herself for them. Again, obvious. And notice all that's left is her memory. Remember that earlier? And so she is now trapped in the ocean, trapped inside her own memories. And who is still around who has the power to reach out to someone's memories? And in case it's not blatantly obvious, that was Sora's hand with his Kingdom Hearts 2 glove on. January 24th, 2017. So yeah, I think this right here really makes it apparent what's going on with Aqua and where the direction of that is going to go in. And of course, this is some very nice CGI. Seeing this up close in detail is pretty cool. Now that's actually all I've got, believe it or not. A decent chunk of this is stuff that's already been showcased. Oh, and of course, the obviousness of the fact that Sora is reaching out into the darkness from the light to pull her out of the darkness. Again, pretty obvious symbolism, but oozing with it. Lots and lots of symbolism all over the place, which is awesome. Now, again, there's some issues with it, and yeah, moving on. I could toss out theories all day about this. But I was specifically asked to do a trailer analysis. Like I said, I don't actually have that much else to share. The one moment that really shined for me, specifically, was that moment. The fact that he has the blue eyes there, which is very eyebrow-raising. And, of course, this moment, which I already highlighted, with the thrones rising up from the darkness, and then Xehanort being on all of them. I actually went through this scene a couple of times because I admit that I would like it for my theories to be correct. I'm not ashamed of that. It would be nice to be right. And I think it would be really cool if in some way Brig or Xigbar was represented here. However, as will be obvious in just a moment... Yeah, let's speed this up for a second. Those are clearly just Xehanort. No Zigbar, no Braig, no nothing. Even though, if I'm not mistaken, that's his throne on the far left there. The 1-2 steps from Xehanort's right. Also, it's probably just a trick of the lighting, but for just a moment I thought that was actually Syx in Xehanort's pose on Xehanort's left there, because that's Syx's throne. And you can kind of see like a blue outline there, but upon reflection, I'm pretty sure that's just Xehanort again, with the blue light going on his, his skull, or his baldness, whatever, you know what I mean. Oh, an obvious visual representation for the earlier 13 points of darkness right there, leading to him casting Supernova, or whatever it is he actually does. Anyways, I do admittedly like the symbolism of this point. What you're seeing right here is quite literally Kingdom Hearts, the whole series summarized. I'm not kidding. I am not kidding at all. Here, pay attention, okay? So, first of all, the kids play, and then they connect with someone else, and we see the bits and pieces of their lives and how they were destroyed by Xehanort, and how Aqua has lost so much of everything. And this is a representation of what happens to the worlds when they are destroyed. You'll see it in just a moment. Shut up, Django. Right here. Representation of a world being destroyed. Combat, blah, blah, blah. Losing of friends, Mickey's inclusion. The freedom release, we have won. Xehanort actually planned for that victory all along. Xehanort had his back card, has now returned back to prominence, and now everything is actually worse than ever, with those two being sealed away. Haha, with a reflect spell. And of course, Aqua herself being lost in her memories to be rescued by Sora. That is literally all of Kingdom Hearts basically summarized in very, very brief throughout that whole section. So that's cool. Let's get everything back on here. Hey, King Bubble. I lost my background. I lost my background, guys. All in all, if I had a PS4, I'd be pretty excited about that. I don't, I'm not. Moving on. Next point. God, I don't know which I want to cover first. How many of you out there, okay, first of all, let me just go ahead and say that if you haven't voted on the Halloween stream, for those of you not aware, it is confirmed that I am going to be doing the Halloween stream tomorrow. That has finally been settled. It wasn't even settled until last night. But, yeah, tomorrow will be the Halloween stream. There is a straw poll out right now. I really, really want you all to go vote in and weigh in on when you want that stream to start. The two options are 11 a.m. EST and 5 p.m. EST, which is pretty much the standard here on the Lore Runner. So, go vote. I'll be putting it up on the website as soon as Loreweek is over. You have all of Loreweek to vote. So please go vote, and please go plug the vote. Now, let's talk about something that kind of I can't talk about without basically violating my own rule. So let's talk a little bit about something controversial. Let's talk about Google Fiber. Now, for those of you not aware, Google Fiber is the closest thing to European internet in the United States, is how it has sometimes been described. The idea is, once you have the infrastructure set up, providing the service is much, much easier to and cheaper to provide. So most of the expense in Google Fiber, hear me out, I'm going somewhere with this, guys. Most of the expense in Google Fiber is the establishment, the laying of new pipe, and it's not literally pipe, the laying of new pipe, and the setting up of the networks and getting them hooked in onto the trunk and so far and so on. Now, once that's done, Google Fiber is extremely cost-effective and efficient and easy to maintain. And the actual service itself is superior to anything else the United States has to offer on a commercial level. I say that without hesitation as someone who's worked on a professional business level with several large internet companies for about a decade. So Google Fiber is the stuff. It's awesome, right? if this was Civilization 6, you would probably look at Google Fiber as, we'll say, a building improvement for a given city. And it adds these benefits to a city, but it costs this expense to build, right? Now, from the perspective of Civ 6, that's a no-brainer. You get some fairly large benefits from having Google Fiber in each of those cities as a civilization, right? So if you were playing Civ 6 and you weren't exactly in some kind of economic turmoil or in the middle of a war, you know, something else wasn't distracting you is what I'm trying to say. You're just building up your infrastructure of your civilization. Producing Google Fiber in each of your cities is probably something you would actually do. You with me so far? Here's the catch. When you are playing Civ 6, you are playing an entire civilization. Therefore, the overall benefit of your entire civilization is what you are interested in. It is your goal. You want to benefit your civ. Make sense? Now, real life doesn't work like that at all. In real life, there is no person working for the benefit of their civ, no person making those decisions. There's no singular point of leadership that's doing that, for good and for bad. So instead, here in real life, you have someone whose interest is making money. Now, I always got to add this boilerplate. Yes, a company's purpose is to make money. Yes, I understand how economics work. Yes, I understand how business works. Okay, we've got the asterisks out of the way. Let's move on. When your primary, and indeed in many cases sole focus is making money, you will often do things that are, in my opinion, when you pull the camera out, to the detriment of the civilization. So, if the people... That's not true, Fearsome. If the people involved in pushing out Google Fiber, and I actually can't remember their names right now, it's not Google, there's another company. But if those people were interested in the betterment of the United States, it would be a no-brainer to them to continue pushing out Google Fiber. It has obvious and apparent long-term benefits for the people throughout the course of the United States and for the company themselves. It is something that will be long-term beneficial, even from a purely financial standpoint, from their perspective. And yet... Alphabet, thank you. And yet, they're basically restricting, and talks are in place right now to stop all expansion of Google Fiber. The reason why is because it's expensive. Now, to make this more clear, the reason why is because it's expensive now. It costs more money to set up. I mentioned that in Civ 6, right? It costs a big ol' amount of money. Big ol' investment. But once it's set up, it runs smoothly and provides long-term benefits, right? But it takes too much money now. So Google Fiber is currently in the action of ceasing its expansion plans. Now, I'm not going to go any further in this topic because this is actually leading into a topic that I will be discussing at the beginning of the Halloween stream. It's something I've been mentioning a few times throughout the course of forever. But but I just wanted to mention it here because some people have asked me, why in the world? Why would Google be discontinuing the Google Fiber thing? And I basically just told you why. There's actually... that's debatable, Deutsch. That is very debatable. Also, it is worthy of note that it is possible... I'm putting an asterisk on this. I have talked to a lot of... I still know a lot of people who are actively involved in networking right now, and I have talked to a lot of these people regarding the Google Fiber thing. Independently of each other. Every single one of them posited the same theory. Now, these are smart people. They're opinionated, and you know they're more technical smart than any other form of smart, but they're still smart people. So I wanted to share their theories, because it was all basically the same theory, and that was that they're being paid to do this. That they are receiving some kind of financial kickback in order to pause the Google Fiber expansion plans on behalf of the the major ISP companies, which would be, for those of you not aware, Comcast, Time Warner, and AT&T, in order to just kind of let them do their thing. Given certain things that are moving right now in the internet economy, especially with AT&T right now, even if that's not the only reason why this is happening, it wouldn't surprise me at all if that is one of the reasons why this is happening. So, yeah. Anywho, we'll see where that goes. Fortunately, fiber is at least in some places. Let's move on to the next topic. Yeah, by the way, for those of you not aware of what's going on with AT&T right now, that would be like a whole Loreweek video just by itself. Let's not even go into that. What AT&T is doing right now is messed up. Let's just say that and move on. Okay. I guess I only have the one more thing to talk about. Although, Lord knows I'm not shy about my opinion on my show. But I may be about to piss off some people. Okay? Okay? Because we got to talk about the voice actor strike and review copies, and both are related topics, believe it or not. I don't even know where to start with this. For those of you not aware, Bethesda has recently mentioned that they are going to be releasing review copies very, very close to release, if at all. Now, let me just go ahead and say that, near as I can tell, the internet hates that fact. And they have been spitting venom at Bethesda for basically the last week. This is an announcement on like Monday or Tuesday. So basically for the whole last week, they've been like, rah, about that. Here's the thing. Their stated reasons for doing this are, paraphrased, we want the reviewers to play the game that's closer to the actual experience, closer to the actual time the gamers are playing it. That experience, wrong word. That explanation for why they're doing that is legitimately nonsensical. I actually spent about 30 or 40 minutes really hashing this out with PAX. We literally were talking back and forth about this. And overall, we came up with nothing. I'm serious. If you legitimately sit down and really logically think about what Bethesda's doing with regards to the review copies, it makes no sense. Now, I'm going to try and break this down for you guys. But again, this was 30 minutes of hashing this out, so I may fail at this. Forgive me. Let us look at potential markets for purchasing a game. Okay? Let's start there. First and foremost, we have people who are going to buy it regardless. There are many reasons to buy it regardless, but there are plenty of people who are going to buy it regardless. It's a new Elder Scrolls. It's a new Fallout. It's a new Final Fantasy. It's a new Mario. Name brand recognition, or loyalty to a console, or loyalty to a company, or maybe they've got money to burn, or whatever. Doesn't matter. They're buying it regardless. So for the purposes of changes to marketing stratagem, this market does not matter. Okay? Next market. People who will not buy a game day of for many different reasons. Maybe they want some kind of word of mouth. Maybe they want to look at a review of it. Maybe they want to have a friend play it first. Maybe they want to try a demo first. Maybe they don't have the money. Maybe they want to pick it up on sale. Okay? For the purposes of marketing stratagem, ergo, this group of people does not matter. You with me so far? I suppose we could also include the group of people who will not buy it, who are disinclined to buy it. So let's go ahead and include those, even though this is just being completionist at this point. These are the group of people who are not particularly interested in procuring a game, and therefore are basically not sold on it, And the only way they could be sold on it is if they get caught with some particular brand of, say, word of mouth, or they see a Let's Play or something like that. They would be after day one sales, in fact, probably after a year one sales. Very small market, but again, a market that is completely unaffected, blah, 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 etc., etc. So that leaves us with the fourth category here. Fourth one, you right? You with me? The fourth category is people who specifically and deliberately look at reviews day one, not the second group. This is a different group. They look at reviews for when the game comes out and decide whether or not to buy the game when it comes out based on the day one review. This one group over here is the only group of people affected by such a change to the review copy policy from Bethesda. Okay? The only one. The other three groups, I think I have fairly demonstrably demonstrated, are not affected by this change whatsoever. The only people who are affected by this are people who want a day one review and then will buy it based on that review, or not buy it based on that review. Okay? So now that we've narrowed in our focus here, we're looking at just this one group of people, okay? Of these group of people, the idea of it to me it does sound like the smallest group of the market samples we've looked at so far. Of this group of people, that we can further narrow this down, because there are people who will buy it based on loyalty to a review site. There are people who go to IGN and say 9.8 sold, and people who look at IGN and say 7 out of 10 nope, because anybody who knows IGN knows that anything below like a 7.5 or an 8 on IGN scale means they think it's terrible. So these people will be deliberately. These people are basically lemmings. I don't mean that as an insult. If I wanted to insult them, I'd call them sheep. But lemmings, because they are basically just following the step in front of them. In other words, IGN's like, do this? Okay, sold. IGN is like, don't do this? Okay, sold. And I use IGN specifically because even though IGN is garbage in my opinion, they are probably the single most commonly known and commonly accessed gaming review site that exists in the world. There are, of course, other big gaming review sites out there. Quite a few, actually. But IGN's the easy one to point to for this. Okay, so that's that group. And then we got the group of people who will look at those day one reviews and use those day one reviews to decide which they buy. In other words, let's say there's 4 games coming out in a short period of time. Easy to understand, because that's a problem for most of the year, really. And let's say they want to buy one of these now and the other one's later. So they look at the review sites for the day one review and say, okay, this one was rated highest. I'll buy this one now, and I'll buy the others later. Okay? If you're paying attention, a trend is forming here, but give me a minute. So, those people would be affected by this change because the day one review would not exist for the Bethesda game. So they would look at some other game that got a day one review and go after that one. Although, it is worth noting the lack of day one review is not... the day one review... I don't actually agree with that, Fearsome. The day one review would impact their decision. Now, there's another group here. I'm lost in my train of thought. Hang on, Fearsome really distracted me. This is such a complicated mess of stupidity that I actually have to really think to keep my thoughts focused on this one. There's another group of people involved in the people who are affected by the day one review concept, and those are the people who are basically... Well, let's just move on. Let's actually move on, okay? Because Fearsome has completely distracted me with his nonsense. Now, why? Why do this? Now, Fearsome posits it's doing shock factor, which makes no sense, actually. The point I'm trying to make is, factually and mathematically, there is no actual reason to do this. Really. You have a couple of possibilities for why they're doing this, though, okay? You ready for this? Here are my theories on what exactly is their reasoning behind doing this. Theory number one. They are doing this because... I need to actually stop looking at chat. I'm sorry, guys. This is such a stupid mess. Hang on. Let me just recenter my focus. I'm kind of tired, too. I didn't get a lot of sleep last night. Okay. So, I know what reason 2 is, because that's the one I'm leading to, and that's the one I think is actually happening. Okay. Reason 1 is to try and encourage people. I'm going to not look at chat for a second. Reason 1 is to try and encourage people to buy games on faith day 1 without any actual review or information on how good the game actually is. Now, several reasons could be done to do that. It could enable the company to produce a less quality game and then try to sell it for full price. Basically, I've talked about this with regards to movies before. It's the day 1 purchase. It's the opening box office weekend purchase. We know our movie's crap, so we want to get as many seats in as possible day 1 to recoup the cost, right? Before word of mouth gets out that the movie's crap. Same concept with games. We want that day 1 purchase. Now, the ideal of a day 1 the appeal of a day 1 purchase is obvious because of the fact that of the quarterly review mentality. We want money now, not later. All right, you with me? Here's the thing. Doing that actually is factually stupid because the only way to actually generate, thank you, Chris, the only way to actually generate a day 1 sale without backing, without a review copy, is marketing. And marketing is expensive. In fact, I think marketing is hyperinflated in terms of its overall expense, but that's a topic we'll probably talk about tomorrow. Regardless, so you have to spend more money to encourage more people to buy your game day 1, regardless of its quality. Next point. Next reason for doing this. People are stupid. Hear me out. I want you to picture this, okay? I want you to picture a boardroom. There's a bunch of managers and executives sitting around deciding what to do. Now, they're thinking, okay, we really need to do something to increase the bottom line. Well, anybody have any ideas? Anybody have any options? And everyone at that boardroom is not interested in the company, okay? They're not interested in the players. They're not interested in the developers. They're not interested in adding to the overall artistic value of the universe. They're not interested in making a long-standing and beloved game or a game franchise. They're interested in one thing: themselves. They want to make sure that they personally are as benefited as possible. And there's a lot of office politics I could go into right now that I'm not going to. You would not even believe, unless you've actually seen it, how much bullcrap goes on in office politics, which is actually intangible. In other words, I'm not even talking about how much I want to work up towards that raise or whatever. There's a lot of puffing of chest and trying to be perceived as the smartest person in the room kind of a thing, which has no tangible benefits other than being perceived as the most politically affluent person in the room. So, every person in that boardroom, they're sitting together and they're thinking, what can we do to really help push our games? What can we do to really push our lineup? And one of the managers in that room had an idea. And that idea was probably a poorly formed aspect of an idea that other companies do that makes perfect sense. See, here's the thing. A day 1 review copy does not... Some people have said that the whole point of the Bethesda day 1 review copy thing is because they want to sculpt the narrative, because they specifically want to only get reviews out that are positive and that are basically bot reviews, one way or the other, right? You with me? Here's the thing. That's not what they're doing. There are other companies that do that. There are other companies that have continued to do that. Companies that do that right now and have for years done that, where only specific people get review copies because they know they will be encouraged, either through contract or through bribes or whatever, to give a positive review. Purchased reviews is such an old school thing. It basically goes back to World War II. It's not a joke. And yet, that's not what happened here. So this manager thinks about that idea and says, well, I'm going to throw my own spin on it. I'm going to say, why don't we restrict reviews for day 1? And it's a dumb idea. And everyone else knows it there, except he starts to argue it, because now he's put his foot in his mouth. Again, office politics. You do something, you don't own up to it. You don't be a good person. You don't actually try to be an adult. You try to be a child and cover up your mistakes so nobody realizes you made a mistake. So he starts trying to defend himself. Whoa, no, see, what we could do is this could be for the betterment of our players, and this could be for the benefit of our viewers. The reviewers will get to play the game that our players get, and blah, 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 blah. And he defends himself sufficiently well that the other people at that board meeting, who, remember, have no interest in the game or the company or anything else except for themselves, they realize they're going to be perceived as weaker politically and less affluent politically if they don't try to move in and either support or oppose this. More of them decide to support it than oppose it. They start going along with it. This will be better for our players. You always say something you don't mean when it comes to that kind of backbiting politics. It's like the frickin' Centauri, really. You don't say what you mean. So, in other words, it is my legitimate theory that this policy, which, taken from a completely neutral, no politics, no selfishness, no any bias involved, just from a mathematical perspective, is illogical and stupid, and actually accomplishes worse than better. That this policy came into happen because someone was trying to basically do a new spin on what other companies are already doing, and got it pushed through thanks to office politics. That's my theory on why Bethesda's doing this. Hi, Krenzler. Hi, Corrales. Now, what does this have to do with the voice actors? This is all part of the same topic because it's about mismanagement. I've actually already talked about the voice actor thing a bit, so I'm not going to go into full detail on it. I'm not. Hell, this is actually not even the second time I've talked about the voice actor thing. Well, that wouldn't really change anything, really, Bella. People would notice pretty quickly. Where's my review copy? Oh, you're not getting it yet. And then it would be a news story. The voice actors thing has been going on for over a year at this point, and has been kind of an ongoing situation, and I probably should save most of this topic for tomorrow, if I'm being completely honest with myself. But what we have is a situation in which voice actors are not getting paid what they're worth and are not being taken care of the way they should be. Let me get that opinion out there right now. That is my genuine opinion. I think that too many companies, I'm not going to say developers or publishers, it varies, but too many companies do not treat voice actors the way they should be treated, basically. They treat, I mean, how many times have I gone out of my way to praise voice acting in certain games? Namely Blizzard, old BioWare games. Both tend to have very, very high quality voice acting, because both companies, Blizzard now and BioWare then, very much believed that good voice acting was one of the key crucial elements of an excellent game, and I agree with that sentence. But most companies treat voice actors like they're dime a dozen, like they're not. We were just talking about Age of Wonders 3. Remember? We were just talking about Age of Wonders 3. And we were kind of making fun of the voice actors for the Elven and the Commonwealth campaign. And yet, it wouldn't actually surprise me all that much to learn. I don't know if this is true, of course, but it wouldn't surprise me that much to learn that the main problem there was that they were just treating those voice actors like garbage. That they weren't treating them like a valuable asset, even in a game which had tons and tons of expository deposits, right? It was just, here's your line, read from the script. Also, voice direction is something that a lot of people seem to forget is an extremely important aspect of voice acting. I have heard good voice actors give bad presentations, and in almost every case that I know about it, it's been specifically because of bad voice directing. Square Enix is actually very guilty of this, because they have good voice actors and actresses on their retinue, and for a lot of their games, and yet, when they get a bad voice director involved, their performances are just blah. Remember, a voice actor may or may not know their character, but they don't know the moment. They don't know the scene. They don't know exactly what's being gone for. They need that voice direction to pull the performance out of them, just like even a good actor can put in a bad performance with a bad director. Right? Yeah, I mean, Destiny and Peter Dinklage is actually a great example of a terrible voice directing job. And yeah, Dissidia immediately comes to mind. James Arnold Taylor is actually a good voice actor. I've heard him do some really good stuff. You wouldn't know it from some of the works he's done with Square Enix, but he's a good voice actor. And I've heard the same voice actor give a great performance and a terrible performance in two different games, playing the same character when the only variance was a different voice director for the two games. And Dissidia Duodecim is an excellent example of that. But all of this is getting across a point. Voice actors are definitely mistreated, in my opinion, and should be treated as a valuable asset. Just my opinion. They're not. For the most part. Again, we're generalizing here. So I do think they should get better stuff. Yes, absolutely. Now, one of the biggest things I hear in opposition to this comes from the developers, the executives, the actual coders and designers and all the people involved in developing games. A few of these have basically said, hey, we don't think that's fair that based on the things they want to show, you want the voice actors to make more money than we do. That's one of the most common complaints I've heard. All I have to say about that, very bluntly, is I agree. The developers should make more money than the voice actors. No, I'm serious. However, I don't think that means the voice actors should make less money, if you understand my perspective here. In other words, I think that if the developers are concerned that they're going to be lowballed by the voice actors, then the developers should make more money. Now, I know what you're saying. Well, hang on. Where's that money coming from? Because that money just doesn't appear out of thin air. If they spend more money on developers, and if they spend more money on voice actors, where the hell does that money come from? I've talked about this so much lately, I feel like a broken record, and I'm sorry. I've actually done further investigation into this and into the reports on what people have spent on marketing a game recently. But this is why this ties into that initial thing, because this is all about mismanagement. This is all about spending money in all the wrong places. So many people seem to think that the only way to make more money is to have an increasing intake of money. Or they seem to think that the only way to make more money is to reduce your spending on essential aspects of your company. Do you know how many times that I have seen a company refuse to cut the fat? Now, I wish Zawan was here, because I would love to reference him, but Zawan and I have actually had extensive discussions back and forth, well, not extensive, but several discussions back and forth about the difference between fat in gaming, padding, in other words. When it comes to a business, fat is actually very easy to define. It's overhead. Excessive overhead. Okay? In other words, let me give you a completely made-up example. Okay? Completely made up. All right? Let's say I spend $1 on an engine. Hear me out, okay? I spend $1 on the engine for my game. I spend $10 on the building, I spend $100 on the developers, and I spend, say, $75 on the voice actors, okay? This all lines up, we're all ready to go on this, and then the development time goes through, but I'm also spending $2,000 on getting the word out marketing-wise for my company. I am also spending $200 on gold-lined toilet seats. Now, I know that sounds ridiculous, but that's kind of how that works, and I have seen this personally. I've actually done the books for a company, twice actually in my life. And I look at that and I'm like, why are you spending this ridiculously large amount of money on something that not only isn't worth anything, because what exactly do gold-plated toilet covers produce for your company? What do they do that helps the company? Even if you ignore the whole, let's make a work of art, let's add to the substance of the universe, idealism thing. If you fling that out the window and it's all about bottom line money, why are you burning money on garbage. Why are you... Yeah, the bus thing. GTA 5 blew money on setting up those bus adverts. Now, for those of you not aware, those buses, in my opinion, overcharge for those adverts because they have this, let's just go ahead and call it what it is, a made-up metric of how many eyeballs are going to be seeing those adverts, and they charge based on that and based on the routes that the buses take. So, in other words, if you want to put an ad on the side of a bus, this varies from city to city, obviously, it's going to be expensive. Let's blow a huge wad of money on putting adverts on buses. Let's blow a huge wad of money on, actors and whatnot. Let's blow a huge wad of money on setting up fancy props and stages and all sorts of just gold-plated toilet seat covers. Because they don't mean anything. They don't do anything. They don't really help spread the word. That kind of thing was at least acceptable about, I don't know, 20 to 30 years ago. But nowadays? Yeah, exactly, Bella. Nowadays? Seriously? Nowadays? Let's assume for a moment that I am Bethesda. Okay? And I go to my Twitter, and I tweet, new Skyrim game, Skyrim Remastered being worked on. Send. Do you know how much marketing I just generated? For free? This is the modern era. And with so many other aspects of modern businesses, people have not figured out that this is not 20 years ago. People have not adapted. People have not changed. People have not moved forward. So they are blowing money on things that are overpriced for no reason, really. Bottom line, it's another aspect of mismanagement. Now, I could actually talk about the union side of things, but that's getting a little bit too much into the politics thing. All I will say about the union thing is that once upon a time, unions were an amazing thing. Just like monopolies were actually once an amazing thing. Seriously, this actually is true. You look at history, monopolies helped to prevent absolute exploitation of something that became a middle class after the monopoly. Unions helped to prevent exploitation by the people who had the power and money, and so forth and so on. But the bottom line here is that my first knowledge of unions came from my grandfather, who became rich, and is still rich to this day, by being a union representative for, I forget the name of it, but I think it's Pacific Bell. It's one of the big gas companies. Would you like to know why my grandfather got rich being a union rep? Because I'm not going to tell you, but I think you could put the pieces together for yourself. You know what my first exposure to a union was? It's not a joke. I was working at a company called Montgomery Watson. It's an engineering firm. I was a graphics designer. I was pretty young. And they had a union rule in place that only members of blah union, I don't know names or numbers, don't ask, could do heavy lifting, right? In other words, these are the only people who can be rearranged or moved, or, it was done to protect the workers' jobs, because what had been happening, from my understanding, is that too often companies would try to basically tell their employees, hey, go do this work to get it for free, and therefore argue that the actual people, members of union whatever, the heavy lifters union, would not actually, they didn't have to hire them. And so people were losing jobs or losing hours as a result of that. So the union rule existed. If you're going to move something, if you're going to move equipment, it needs to be a member of the union, right? All of that makes sense. So when I first got set up, I didn't have a computer for about a week and a half, because I couldn't go to the storage area, grab my computer, and drag it in, or carry it in, to my office. My cube, actually. My cubicle. I couldn't do that because there was a union rule restricting me from getting my computer and pulling it here. That was my first personal experience with a union. I don't feel like I even need to keep going. I really don't. Anyways, that's all I got. Did anyone else have any topics they want to bring up this week? Oh yeah, let's see what the poll is. Because as soon as this poll... If you haven't voted, go vote like right now. Because I'm going to be basically closing this poll very soon. Now I wait patiently. Oop. Looks like our lighting values have changed today. We'll do the darker. No, too dark. There we go. Oh yeah, Kingdom Hearts Unchained. I have read that whole thing, Arximus. I don't know if I mentioned that to you. It is my opinion, based on what I've looked at, that what we are seeing is one of two things. Naked, stupid greed, or Americans are stupid. I'm not sure which it is. Hey, Dr. Nimbus. Anywho, this is your final moments to vote. I'm going to go ahead and chop off the YouTube recording here. So, for those of you watching on YouTube,